Kirsten, David, we spoke with more than a few Tesla owners, and by and large, they love their cars. So much so, a lot of them might not realize how much it's actually costing them.
Have you ever wondered why electric cars are suddenly everywhere? It's like they've invaded our streets overnight. Billboards, TV ads, even your neighbor's driveway, they're all screaming, "Go electric." But what if I told you there's more to this electric vehicle revolution than meets the eye? You've heard all the buzzwords. Electric vehicles are the future, they say. Save the planet, drive electric. But have you ever stopped to think, why are they pushing this so hard? The truth behind this electric vehicle madness is about to blow your mind. There's a hidden agenda at play, and it's not going as smoothly as they make it seem. Let me tell you about it. The electric vehicle race. The surge toward electric vehicles isn't just a technological shift meant to quiet the roar of internal combustion engines. It's a colossal geopolitical chess game, mainly because China is flexing its muscles in the auto world like never before. The push for electric vehicles is more than an environmental cause, it's a showdown between global powers to control the future of transportation. It's about establishing dominance not just on the roads, but across international economies. The geopolitical plot thickens when you consider what's at stake with electric vehicle adoption. Imagine a world where mastering this new wave of tech equals grabbing hold of a massive power lever, economically and politically. As countries sprint to cut carbon footprints and take on climate change, ruling the electric vehicle empire has become the ultimate prize. But don't get fooled, this isn't just a tech race. Securing resources and weaving through supply chains is also about sowing seeds that could bolster a nation's own interests on the global stage. Now, about China's towering presence in the electric vehicle market, it isn't just living in the fast lane, it's ruling it. Let's talk numbers. China churns out over 60% of the globe's lithium-ion batteries and boasts vaults stocked with vital materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. This stranglehold catapults it into the driver's seat of global electric vehicle production, turning the nuts and bolts of battery craftsmanship into pure power. Taking this further, China holds nearly 80% of rare earth elements used in all kinds of high-tech gear, electric vehicles included. Such control hands it the lever to dictate trade terms and steer international pricing to its beat. And let's not forget the supply chains, interconnected and buzzing with activity, creating a well-oiled machine that churns out and delivers at breakneck speed. Western counterparts, they're tangled in regulatory red tape and facing heftier labor bills, making it quite a task to emulate China's breakneck speed. So how are Western countries responding to China's juggernaut status? They're revving up their own engines to gain ground in this electric arms race. The strategy includes government-driven moves from the US to the European Union aiming to light a fire under domestic electric vehicle production. Think pouring more cash into research and development, doling out incentives to manufacturers, and waving carrots to get more folks behind the wheel of an electric vehicle. Partnerships are lighting up the Western horizon too. Local businesses are shaking hands with domestic and international players to secure critical resources. Imagine U.S. carmakers eyeing lithographic gold in North America, all in a bid to break the chains tying them to Chinese supplies. But this fierce race with China isn't without its twists and turns, especially economically. As Western nations attempt to build their supply chains for electric vehicles, they find themselves paying higher bills for labor and regulatory compliance while bridging infrastructure gaps. Such hurdles can slow their roll against Chinese competitors who cruise on a lane of lower costs. And in this geopolitical high-speed chase for electric vehicle dominance, the friction doesn't end with domestic hurdles. It spills into global trade lanes, stirring up tensions. We're talking tariffs, export bans, and trade walls that could throw a wrench in the world's supply gears, adding layers of complexity for countries working to stand up against the Chinese juggernaut. In the midst of this electric storm, the pursuit of electric vehicle supremacy isn't just a quest for a quieter, cleaner tomorrow. It's a full-blown economic and geopolitical clash with ripples echoing through industries and across borders, forcing nations to rethink strategies in a still revolutionary race. Given the geopolitical tensions and economic complexities surrounding the global race for electric vehicle dominance, it's crucial to also consider the hidden costs and practical challenges that consumers face when adopting this technology. The hidden costs of EVs. Electric vehicles are often showered with praise for their promise of lower running costs compared to good old internal combustion engine vehicles. But dig a little deeper and you might stumble upon a story that's a tad more complicated, where hidden expenses and challenges take their toll on the cost of owning one. This deep dive is all about flipping the script on those grand savings claims you always hear, focusing closely on the hurdles presented by public charging stations and the potential spike in electricity costs. Let's talk about those claims about how economical electric vehicles supposedly are. Everyone says they're the cost-friendly alternatives to gasoline and diesel vehicles, but not so fast. That notion may just lure you down the wrong path. Why? Because the sticker price or initial purchasing cost of electric vehicles paints a different picture. It's usually higher than similar internal combustion engine cars, thanks largely to the costly wonder of battery technology. Now, battery prices have been on a downtrend, but for Joe Average buying a new car, that price tag still looms as a big obstacle. You're looking at a price jump, maybe 20 to 30% more compared to your typical petrol vehicle. That's no small change, completely offsetting any savings you might have thought you'd get from those lower running costs down the road. And when we weigh in on operating costs, things get even messier. Saying electric vehicles are way cheaper to keep going than internal combustion engine vehicles might be a bit of a stretch. Sure, electricity might seem cheaper on a per-mile basis if you squint, but hang on a minute, let's break it down. Imagine charging costs that swing dramatically depending on your location and the type of charging station you're using. Particularly, those blazing fast charging stations can cost you dearly, sometimes erasing those savings you thought were within reach when compared to a leisurely home charge. Imagine being hit with a rapid charging fee climbing up to 79 pence per kilowatt hour. That's a wallet zapper during long journeys if you stick with those public chargers. But hold on, starting up that home charging setup isn't a light leap either. Think of it kind of like adding an electric appendage to your home. Installations eat up anywhere from $500 to $2,000 plus, depending on how deluxe or complex the setup needs to be. Tack on the odd local electrical code, and before you know it, your initial investment snowballs into a bigger upfront beast. Getting your money back through fuel savings? Yeah, that could take a while. How about costs tied to public charging? Not a cheap affair. Think fast charging during long trips. Time's always of the essence, but rapid charges come with steep fees, ballooning up your cost per mile beyond the budget benefits of home charging. Meanwhile, some networks throw in membership fees or subscriptions, the hidden thorns to that rosy savings picture you might have drawn when glancing at lower electricity costs. More electric vehicles mean demand spikes on the electricity front. A rush to electric threatens to pound electrical grids like a hurricane unannounced, whether they're ready or not. Especially in the unprepared regions, utilities may have no choice but to fatten up infrastructure spending, potentially leading to raised consumer rates. Recent geopolitical upheavals, they've already got energy prices bouncing globally. In the rush to ditch fossil fuels, swift spikes in power prices could occur from supply chain mess-ups or heated contests for resources. Down the line, the crystal ball's cloudy, but some hope electricity prices might level out with renewables on the rise. But don't bank on certainty just yet. Electricity pricing plans vary wildly, influenced by regional policies or regulations or markets in flux. Some areas firmer on fossil fuels like natural gas or coal may catch residential electricity bill spikes as demand climbs. Got a utility provider recalibrating to meet electric vehicle-driven demand? Be ready. They could throw new tariffs or pricing setups at you, further muddling the cost equation of owning an electric vehicle. So there it is. The tale of electric vehicles is layered, unpredictable, and in ways electric in the surprises it holds, much like the vehicles themselves. Hype versus reality. We've all heard the hype. Electric vehicles are all about saving money and saving the planet at the same time. Yet a closer look peels back the glossy sales pitch to reveal a tangled web of economic missteps that might leave you blinking in disbelief. Let's dive into this mess, where production nightmares, financial sinkholes for the manufacturers, and well-meaning but misguided government incentives weave a tale straight out of an economic thriller. Once upon a time, the sell on electric vehicles was simple: scale up production and watch prices plummet. The notion was that with enough cars zipping off the assembly line, the magic of economies of scale would flip the switch to lower prices for buyers everywhere. Buckle up, because those dreams were supercharged by forecast after forecast, all pointing fingers at falling battery costs as the golden ticket to making electric vehicles wallet-friendly compared to those old-school gas guzzlers. World governments leaped into the fray too, tossing out tax credits, rebates, and subsidies like confetti to jazz up electric vehicle adoption. The whole idea was to make the electric switch a no-brainer for middle-class families and to jolt market growth into overdrive. But fast forward to today, and the road has turned bumpy. Despite the bold promises, the stark truth is that many manufacturers are wading through the deep waters of high production costs. A McKinsey report spells it out. Producing an electric vehicle can drain around $12,000 more from the coffers than crafting a similar gas-powered car. What's the deal, you ask? The sky-high expenses stem largely from pricey battery tech and the daunting financial leap into new production methods and serious infrastructure upgrades. And it doesn't end there. Automakers like Ford and Rivian have unveiled financial statements that read like horror stories from the electric vehicle front lines. Ford found itself bleeding $36,000 per Mach-E sold just last year, with analysts forecasting a chilling $5 to $5.5 billion loss in 2024 for its electric vehicle department. Rivian's sagas aren't much better. A sobering reminder that unless you're Tesla, turning a profit on electric vehicles seems more like a daydream than reality right now. Factor in astronomical early spends on R&D, tooling, and shiny new production sites, and the financial headaches only grow. So what about making a return on those mad investments? Typically, car makers play the long game, expecting to balance out early costs over time with hefty sales numbers. Yet the harsh reality strikes again. Many electric vehicle models aren't flying off lots in numbers great enough to foot the bills. This has put companies in a precarious position, forcing them into unhealthy choices, either to swallow the losses themselves or spread some of the financial gloom onto other successful products. Neither path looks sustainable as a road to long-term success in the ever-competitive automotive world. Then there's the government incentives puzzle, built to woo everyday folks into the arms of electric vehicles, particularly those middle-class consumers needing a nudge. But here's a sobering piece of the puzzle. Even with subsidized love, the entry price for electric vehicles often sails above that of their gasoline cousins. For many consumers watching their pockets, the allure fades, leaving them sidelined by high costs or reluctant to pour money into tech that doesn't scream instant savings. Speaking of savings, let's break down the skepticism that's brewing. While it's true that operational costs for electric vehicles can drop thanks to lower maintenance needs and power that's cheaper than petrol, those savings are like quicksilver, slippery and unpredictable, heavily influenced by local electricity rates and charging availability. Throw battery replacement costs, potentially sky-high in thousands, into the mix, and the financial dynamics start to look more complicated than a cryptic crossword. While the economic challenges of electric vehicle adoption are significant, it's important to also consider the environmental implications. The green illusion. You've heard it a million times. Electric vehicles are the superheroes swooping in to save our planet, reducing greenhouse gas emissions and ushering us into a sustainable environmental future. The story sounds compelling, right? No tailpipe emissions, no dirty exhaust fumes. It's a significant leap forward compared to the gas-guzzling, smoke-belching machines we're used to. But slow down for a moment and let's take a closer look. Turns out this tale might have more plot twists than you thought, especially when it comes to the production carbon footprint they leave in their wake. Proponents of electric vehicles paint a picture of a world where these electric wonders knock climate change down a peg or two by cutting our fossil fuel addiction and slashing greenhouse gas emissions. This optimism is anchored on the belief that once these cars hit the open road, they produce nada in terms of tailpipe emissions. Zero emissions mean not just cleaner air but also lower emissions from the transportation sector as a whole. And look at the numbers. Electric vehicles are selling like hotcakes, and that's often shoved in our faces as proof of their green prowess. Sure, electric vehicles are branded as environmentally angelic, but behind the glossy ads lurks the devil in details: their heavy carbon footprint at the production stage. Reports lay it on thick. Your average electric vehicle production churns out over 7 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. Just the battery alone takes up a significant slice of that pollution pie, about 40 to 60% of the total emissions for whipping up an electric vehicle. The materials involved in battery making, lithium, nickel, cobalt, and manganese, demand energy-hungry extraction and processing, often guzzling fossil fuels like a marathon runner at a water station. This stage pumps out a substantial amount of greenhouse gases before you've even revved the engine. When you stack up electric vehicles against their traditional gas-powered cousins, studies show a staggering truth. 46% of an electric vehicle's carbon emissions are cooked up during production, whereas gas vehicles sit at a comparatively modest 26%. This stark contrast shoves into the spotlight a murky truth. Going electric isn't as squeaky clean as it sounds. Driving down the production emissions for an electric vehicle involves clocking up some serious mileage, thinking over 50,000 miles. However, this rosy hypothesis banks on optimistic dreams about their operational efficiency and the purity of the energy used for charging. Let's burst that bubble for a second. The average Joe or Jane might not hit enough miles in a car's typical lifespan to cover that carbon tab. If an electric vehicle is topping up from a grid that's mostly fed by fossil fuels, reaching carbon breaking even can be a distant dream, dragging on for more than 5 years in certain areas. Conversely, in regions blessed with renewable energy bounty, you might hit that sweet spot in a nifty 6 months. Hitting the necessary mileage to offset those initial emissions isn't just a casual drive, not with the world's current energy diet. A hefty 70% of global electricity still chugging from fossil fuels throws a monkey wrench into the touted environmental gains of electric vehicles, given that charging emissions could cancel out wins from lower tailpipe emissions. Countries striving for cleaner energy faces a sluggish road. Forecasts hint that renewables might only fill 40% of global electricity by 2050, a snail's pace posing serious queries about the feasibility of slashing total transportation emissions with a broad electric vehicle rollout. While renewables are the magic beans for cutting carbon footprints, their current barriers are a hard pill to swallow. Transitioning isn't a frolic in the field, it's riddled with tech hurdles, infrastructure hiccups, and economic thorns. Counting solely on renewables to back a giant leap to electric vehicles might not hit the jackpot right off the bat. Even as solar panels and wind turbines become more familiar sights, building the substantial infrastructure to support them needs serious cash and tech upgrades to ensure steady supply. The rate of these advancements can't be shrugged off. It's a crucial determinant in how well electric vehicles can actually steer toward environmental friendliness. An evolution or a revolutionary leap. The buzz around electric vehicles often showcases their trailblazing technological strides. But here's where it gets interesting. Are these so-called innovations truly pioneering, or are they just a remix of old auto melodies? This intriguing analysis gets into the nitty-gritty of today's electric vehicle technology, zeroing in on the raves about battery advances while keeping an eye on the environmental price tags and the lurking threat of technological standstills thanks to market-driven wins. When the smoke clears and the dust settles, one big question lingers. Are we genuinely making groundbreaking progress or just playing a clever game of musical chairs within traditional automotive rhythms? Sure, the realm of electric vehicles has made some notable leaps forward, but what does it really mean for true innovation? Shifting from the classic internal combustion engines to slick electric engines comes with hefty overhauls in parts and systems. However, peel back the layers and you'll find that many core principles remain largely untouched. Let's talk about battery technology advancements. There's no denying the craft of battery tech has ascended. Throw out a few names like solid-state and lithium-sulfur batteries, and you've got yourself a party. But with claims of boosted performance in electric vehicles, there's a catch. These advances bring along baggage that includes an array of dizzying challenges and environmental conundrums. Take solid-state batteries, for instance. A switch from liquid to solid electrolytes can bump up safety and lifespan. Yet the woes of sourcing materials and environmental snag must be chewed over. Peek at lithium-sulfur batteries. They whisper promises of energy densities that swoop above traditional lithium-ion batteries. But put your ear a little closer and you'll hear the underlying buzz of issues with longevity and eventually breaking free into commercial success. And the environmental impacts? Oh boy, brace yourselves. Crafting these advanced batteries often means stepping into the murky world of mining for rare stuff like lithium and cobalt. The trails lead through significant environmental challenges. Image destruction of ecosystems, water contamination, and the dark shadow of human rights violations in epicenters of mining. Scenarios straight out of a dystopian tale. While the tech is hitting its stride, the environmental toll it takes casts a long shadow that demands our attention. Now on to the notorious beast that is potential technology stagnation. You might wonder, how can a world racing at breakneck speeds in tech see stagnation on its radar? Blame it on market pressures, which could unknowingly throw cold water on some electrifying ideas. Let's talk cost constraints. With manufacturers locked in a duel to slash costs, battles fought to outpace traditional vehicles, innovative tech that could shake the world may sit on the back bench thanks to higher upfront costs. With consumers nestled into cars boasting defined metrics like range and charging speed, manufacturers may face lowered incentives to venture beyond those comforts. Why rock the boat when everyone's happy with what's on the menu? This attitude could translate into manufacturers sticking to the sure bets, quenching curiosity without exploring new tech wonders that might turn tomorrow's world upside down. Encircling us all is the automotive industry's short-term focus, drafted into quarterly earnings cycles and right-now consumer allergies. Such a setting could choke long-haul research and development pursuits. Dealing with risk aversion, companies freeze at the prospect of pushing untested technologies due to fears of their Frankenstein creations being booted out of the marketplace. Such jitters often laundered with a bias for the traditional rather than diving headfirst into the pool of potential revolutionary game changers. The regulatory framework presents a fascinating paradox. Governments increasingly wielding the sword of emissions reduction and fuel efficiency standards nudge up a gust of innovation. But these whirls can also sweep manufacturers toward cautious incremental tweaks rather than seismic shifts that could send ripple effects throughout the market. Consumer satisfaction is falling short. As electric vehicles surge in popularity, there's been a glaring disconnect brewing between the glitzy promises sold to eager customers and the bumpy road they're actually traveling. While glossy ads and sleek campaigns paint a picture of seamless rides and eco-friendly adventures, reality has a different color scheme altogether. Many electric vehicle enthusiasts, attracted by optimistic projections of a cleaner, greener automotive future, find themselves navigating a maze of dissatisfaction once they set out on the road. This analysis digs into the data from various surveys and anecdotal evidence, pulling back the curtain on this disconnect. We'll explore what consumers are really feeling, dissect their hesitation to embrace these green machines, and tackle the hurdles of range anxiety and charging infrastructure that lie ahead. Consumer sentiments have been surprisingly loud and clear. They're not as thrilled as expected. Recent surveys serve as evidence of this noticeable discontent among electric vehicle owners, findings that throw some heavy shade on the rosy promises initially dangled by manufacturers and advocates alike. Consider the McKinsey & Company survey from 2024, which startled industry insiders with its revelation. Nearly 40% of electric vehicle buyers in the United States are flirting with the idea of going back to traditional combustion engines. They point fingers at a triad of issues: crippling inadequacies in charging infrastructure, soaring energy costs, and nagging doubts about range and battery life. Adding to this, the 2024 U.S. Electric Vehicle Experience Ownership Study by J.D. Power sheds light on similar dissatisfactions. Electric vehicle owners vent about the lackluster access to public charging stations and frustrating battery range issues. Indeed, for many mass-market EV drivers, the public charging struggle has emerged as their top grievance in an otherwise promising ownership journey. Crossing borders into Germany, a Next Move survey echoes these sentiments, finding that a mere 47% of electric vehicle users are likely to give a thumbs up when recommending their electric set of wheels to a friend. Their gripes mostly orbit around subpar charging experiences and lackluster customer service. But what's the story beyond the graphs and pie charts? Real-life consumer gripes have been airing on various complaint channels, giving voice to frustrations felt far and wide. Take a peek at the Motor Ombudsman's report from the first quarter of 2024. It documents complaints relating to electric vehicles sprawling across varied concerns, from the snags in customer service to purchase issues, hiccups involving chassis and motor mechanics, right down to battery blues. Then there are range issues. While only 6% of complaints zero in on specific range concerns, this tiny percentage gestures toward a much broader worry that haunts consumers. Can they hit those dream distances on a full tank, metaphorically speaking? This query nags at many, notably among newer electric vehicle adoptees who haven't quite gotten the feel for their ride's true capabilities. And let's face it, this is especially nerve-wracking for someone freshly navigating the unfamiliar terrain of electric cars. Next on the hit list is range anxiety, a colossal wave crashing onto the shores of widespread electric vehicle adoption. This fear? It's the terror of a battery flatlining long before reaching any charging haven. Simply put, it's the worry of being left out in the cold with no juice to keep going. Many consumers harbor doubts, cynics about how far an electric vehicle can truly go when pitched against the calm stride of traditional vehicles. Sure, battery developments have unlocked more miles per charge, but deep-seated skepticism lingers, with potential buyers still linking electric vehicles to a limited journey circle. The terror of ending up without a charging station in sight is a potent deterrent, a mental roadblock stopping many from taking the leap into electric vehicle ownership. This dread is further fueled by whispers that actual driving distances often trail behind what manufacturers' claims lead folks to expect, fertile ground for breeding distrust among prospective buyers. And what about the whole problem with charging infrastructure? How reliable are these stations really? Accessibility and trustworthy chargers are linchpins in shaping how buyers feel about electric vehicles. There's no beating around the bush. Many consumers feel they're skating on thin ice with the scant availability of public charging stations. According to the McKinsey survey, one of the biggest deal breakers for those teetering on the edge of being buyers? A woeful lack of adequate public charging infrastructure. Even when you stumble across a charging oasis, costs loom large and unpredictable. Enter the enigmatic realm of varying charging costs. Rapid chargers, for instance, slap on higher rates per kilowatt hour, often nixing out projected home charge savings. This inconsistency can slash through consumer spirits, adding surprise costs for those leaning on public facilities. Throw in user experience hurdles and, well, things start fraying at the edges. Confusing charging apps, entangled payment systems, the challenges seem tailor-made to pop the convenience bubble that electric vehicles ought to be floating in. Many users sing a familiar refrain of stumbling across difficulties, be it pinpointing vacant chargers or decoding perplexing payment processes, distracting from the overall ease and joy that should accompany owning an electric vehicle.